Jaquan Brisker suffered a concussion in Week 5 against the Carolina Panthers. And now, more than a month later, he still hasn't cleared concussion protocol. That's a huge concern, obviously, for his own individual health, but also his long-term future with the Chicago Bears.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Terms and conditions apply. On the show today, we talk about the real concerns surrounding Jaquan Brisker, not only for his own, personal individual health, which is scary enough, but then for the team as well, when his concussion history keeps mounting and the amount of time he's missing is now becoming a bigger and bigger factor here. And we'll keep it injury themed as we look at the offensive line, where a couple of guys are banged up and those injuries could force a lineup change where maybe you move a couple of guys around to fill some of the spots that need filling. And, they weren't even playing that great when they were healthy either. And then we'll check in on some of the other injuries in the secondary besides Jaquan Brisker, where you're running out of depth at the cornerback spot. So if you wanted to keep Tyreek Stevenson benched, that's going to be tricky. Not a lot of experience behind them. And certainly you're one injury away from being pretty down bad at the cornerback spot. But it feels like no one on the team is down worse right now than Jaquan Brisker when it comes to this concussion situation. It seems really scary from the outside. We don't have a lot of information about it. We don't know exactly how severe and what kind of symptoms or other things he's dealing with. But we know it's been a while that he suffered that concussion on October 6th, Week 5 against the Carolina Panthers. It was a game where he did finish the game after being involved in a big hit on a Carolina Panthers player, but then reported concussion symptoms later on after the game and was placed in concussion protocol. And I think we've kind of gotten numbed to the idea of concussions in the NFL a little bit of, right, okay, guy suffers a concussion, he might miss a game or maybe two, and then he'll be back and get right back out there, right? And he'll rub some dirt in it and keep playing through it. But with Jaquan Brisker, he misses the next game against the Jaguars in London. Okay, you get a bye week for him to kind of heal up. And okay, you think he might be able to come back, but then misses the Commanders game, misses the Cardinals game, and already now slated to miss this game against the New England Patriots. And you kind of wonder, is everything okay? Is he going to be all right? Just even if we put aside, the Bears are missing one of their starting safeties, you put away the fantasy football side of it and the GM side of it, and just say, as a human being, is he suffering? Is he okay? Is he gonna be okay? I just feel bad for Jaquan Brisker. It starts to enter the neighborhood of the Tua Tagovailoa conversation. And we don't have to rehash the whole Tua thing, but of course, we've seen Tua suffer concussion after concussion after concussion, and people are really concerned about his health. And you kind of wonder, is the next concussion going to be the one that maybe ends his career in Miami? I don't think Jaquan Brisker is quite there yet, but we're now on the third straight season with a concussion for Brisker. And each concussion generally tends to then make you more susceptible for the next concussion. They build up a little bit in that way. And again, I'm no neuroscientist. I've actually interviewed a few of them before and some people who study concussion stuff. So I've got a little bit of background knowledge on this, but I'm certainly not here to make any sort of evaluations or anything or have any sort of medical opinion here. But we do know that generally that's how concussions tend to be experienced. We also know that not every concussion is created equal. And not every player experiences every concussion the same way. And so some can be more severe than others, and some can present themselves in different ways. But we do have a general history of these tend to get worse the more that you have them, or they tend to be more frequent, at least, the more that you had them. And Jaquan Brisker had one in 2022 and missed a game. He had one in 2023 and missed a game. And now he has one in 2024 and has missed 3 full games so far. A Patriots game will make it 4 full games. And we don't know, will he be back for Green Bay after that or how long he ends up being out? And that's obviously very scary for him. But if we put the general manager hat back on, you start to wonder a little bit of like, okay, is this concussion thing going to keep being an issue with Jaquan Brisker? Like, it seemed manageable from a Bears perspective when he would miss a game. You know, like he only missed 2 games as a rookie and only missed 2 games last year from concussions and other stuff, other injuries. Like that's you can get by if you miss your safety for a couple games. Most players miss a game or 2 every season. But when we get into the months, not weeks category here now, and you also add in that these can lead to more of them in the future, it becomes part of the conversation of like, can you rely on Jaquan Brisker as one of your long-term starters in the secondary? Again, not his fault, and this is not to be critical of him at all individually. It's just from a team-building standpoint, it's not fair for Brisker, but he's unlucky or whatever it is, or maybe he has some control over it, but not how much at the safety spot. But for whatever the reasons, he's getting concussions frequently, and if he's going to miss more and more time with each one, like his contract is almost up. This is year 3. Next year will be the last year of his rookie deal. Typically, that last year of the rookie deal is when you would hand out a big contract extension to lock in someone long term and say, okay, you want Brisker to be here on another big 4-year deal to lock him in as one of your starting safeties. He's played like a player who I think has earned that, but the concussion thing now starts to put some doubt in my mind, at least, of whether you can commit a large contract and guaranteed money in that way to Brisker if you feel like, okay, say he comes back from this concussion in a couple weeks and plays the rest of this season, but then, okay, if he suffers a 4th straight year of a concussion next year, how much time is he going to miss? And is he going to be more prone to suffer those? And is there a point where, down the line, those can be career threatening? And I'm not saying Brisker's right there yet or anything, and I'm trying to be cautious about not getting too ahead of myself here, but like at the same time, Ryan Poles has to be having these sort of internal conversations now about like, just as you would with any player's durability. If durability is a question, you have hesitation to give them a long-term contract. And concussions feel like more serious than just regular durability question marks. But nonetheless, it is impacting his ability to be available for this football team. And I'd be a little bit more hesitant to give him a long-term contract extension as these concussions become more severe and more frequent or whatever it might be. Like that scares me off a little bit. But then, okay, if you're a little bit weary of giving Jaquan Brisker a long-term contract, you have to then think about a potential replacement down the line because you still need a long-term starter next to him. Kevin Byard's not here for the long term. He's here for a good time, not a long time. He'll be here the rest of this season and maybe one more year, and then he's in his mid-30s and a free agent, and they're probably going to let go of, we probably get at most one more year of Kevin Byard and at least one more year of Jaquan Brisker. But do you want to have to replace both safeties, or do you by default feel like you kind of have to stick with Brisker because you just don't want to have to replace both spots there? Like, it's a tricky spot. And we on the outside will never have enough medical information to really make that call about how concerned we should or shouldn't be about Brisker and the contract there. But it's definitely part of the conversation now. And that's really unfortunate. And it sucks for Brisker because he's a good player and we all want him to be out there and be successful. And we certainly just want him to be healthy and, not have permanent damage to his brain from all of the hits he's taking to the head. And it's tricky. And in the meantime, we're going to get more Kevin Byard and Elijah Hicks as your 2 safeties for the Bears. And we just hope the best for Jaquan Brisker's recovery. But we got to keep an eye on this situation for the rest of this season and certainly next year and whatever is going to be next in Jaquan Brisker's career. In the meantime, I do want to keep it a little bit more present day focused here as we look ahead to this Patriots game. This Bears offensive line is also quite injured at this point. There's a chance a couple guys come back, but you're probably going to have at least one change in the lineup this week compared to last week. So we'll kind of look at where things stand there and how much things could shake up due to injuries next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on, say, a Patrick Mahomes rookie card or even a Caleb Williams rookie card, it just isn't in the cards. Like, I love collecting, but like that's some really serious money to drop. But thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. every card that I was talking about there has been hit from last week's Arena Club slab packs drop. So Arena Club is the only repack that provides a real value with a complete view of all possible cards and clear hit rates for each one. They're revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. So whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl and using our promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl, code LOCKEDONNFL for 10% off your first purchase. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by our friends at Hims. Sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready to perform. And Hims provides access to treatments that can give you the boost of confidence you need so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you access with affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. We're talking about an access of a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. And the process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. You can start your free visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS, hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. The Bears are hitting a pretty tough slate of injuries right now for this team. That it's across the board, you're finding little bits and pieces of guys out at a variety of positions, and I think there's no spot overall that I'm more concerned than, say, this Chicago Bears offensive line. Right? When you look at the injury report this week, it is loaded with offensive linemen. It is your left tackle, Braxton Jones, has been missing practice and then has jumped to limited at practice on Thursday, so perhaps some progress there from Braxton Jones. But Darnell Wright at right tackle did not practice on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday. That's not usually a good sign for playing on Sunday. Same with backup offensive tackle, the rookie, Karan Amagaji. DNP Wednesday, DNP Thursday, missed last week as well. Not a good sign for him as well. So your left tackle's limited, your right tackle's out, and your rookie backup tackle is also out. Then you've got the good news is that Ryan Bates on injured reserve is a full participant in practice, and Tevin Jenkins, who's dealing with a knee injury, is a full participant at practice. So it's not all bad here, but it is a couple of offensive tackles, a trio of offensive tackles, not at 100% and perhaps not available. I think when we look at the lineup right now, with Tevin Jenkins slotting back in at left guard, that's a great step forward. Bates gives you some options on the interior that we'll talk about in a second here, but it comes down to, does Braxton Jones play or not? I think we're all leaning towards, sounds like Darnell Wright probably not going to be able to go. So you're going to have a hole at right tackle. And if he's the only hole you have at right tackle, and the only hole you really have on the offensive line, then you can, in theory, plug Larry Borum in as your starting right tackle, even though he started for you at left tackle last week. You could plug Larry Borum in at right tackle and have your other four starters in place and probably be fine there. But the real issue becomes if Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright are unable to go, then you need two new starting offensive tackles. And you don't really have two quality backup offensive tackles that can step in and start here. So when both Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright were missing time during the last game, they had called Jake Curhan up from the practice squad, and they moved him into right tackle. Curhan's back down on the practice squad. They could call him up again this week, but for now, he is not on the practice squad. And so I think if both tackles are out this week, your best bet might be putting Larry Borum at left tackle in place of Braxton Jones because, he's probably your best left tackle option there. And then promoting Ryan Bates off the practice squad, putting Bates at right guard, and then Matt Pryor moving him from right guard to right tackle. And that to me feels like if I'm trying to put my best 5 offensive linemen and Jones and Wright are injured, then I go Borum, Jenkins, Shelton, Bates, Pryor. Those feel like the 5 best players. Now that requires you to move a right guard to right tackle, bring in a new right guard, and then also bring in a new left tackle. But that feels like the mix that's healthiest for this Bears offensive line. Now, if Braxton Jones can play and you plug Larry Borum into right tackle, then you could roll with the other 4 starters, but you have a healthy Ryan Bates now. He's spent most of the year on injured reserve. He's been a full participant at practice this week. I'm expecting the Chicago Bears will activate him off of injured reserve if he's a full participant at practice. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, does he stay on the bench? Or do you start Ryan Bates at center and make a center change and bench Coleman Shelton because he's not having a great year? Or do you consider benching Matt Pryor and starting Ryan Bates at right guard? Like, which of those, out of those 3 guys, who are your 2 best starters? Shelton, Bates, and Pryor. I think Bates and Pryor are probably your 2 most consistent players of those 3. But I could also see an argument that Caleb Williams has been working with Coleman Shelton all season, taking snaps from him and working protections with him and stuff, and that even if he's not one of your 3 best, he's not top 2 out of that group as a blocker, just having the communication and familiarity with Caleb Williams could you make the argument that could be more important for Caleb to just have that consistency of the guy he knows, as opposed to putting a brand new center in front of Caleb who might block a little bit better, but doesn't have all the reps of practice of snapping and knowing exactly how the quarterback wants the ball and how the quarterback is going to handle certain protection calls up front. I don't think it's an obvious answer either way, right? I think you could make a case that no, get the better blocker in there, and that could be a pretty strong case. You could make a case that no, leave the familiarity for Caleb in there. That's more important. Like, I'm not here to say one is clearly better or smarter than the other, but more so that the Bears offensive line has options here. And some of those options will be determined by which offensive tackles are or are not healthy in this game and where then they end up moving guys around, or if they'd rather, start Jake Curhan at right tackle since they used him last week instead of moving Matt Pryor over or instead of moving Larry Borum over. They do have some real options here. We just think those options probably won't include Darnell Wright and probably won't include Karan Amagaji based on how the injury report has played out this week. So that group continues to get thin. That group remains the number 1 concern, keeping this offense from producing at its highest level. Like, obviously, offensive coordinator is a problem too. There's other problems, but I think number 1 problem is that group. And when you keep having to change the lineup, it doesn't make it any easier and doesn't make it any better for Caleb or Shane Waldron. So that one's going to have us on the edge of our seat a little bit, biting our fingernails against the New England Patriots. I'm also concerned about how this secondary is going to hold up because the injuries over there have kind of quietly mounted a little bit more to now, you're good with your starters a little bit, but boy, it feels like this Bears cornerback room is one injury away from things really getting rough back there. So we'll kind of check in on, another cornerback added to injured reserve, a couple others missing practice, and all of a sudden it could be a little bit thin on the back end around Jalen Johnson. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. I'm on LinkedIn. I bet you're on LinkedIn too. And if you're not, that's okay. But a lot of your friends, family members, and coworkers are all part of the LinkedIn community. That's what makes it so LinkedIn isn't just a job board, because it helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Locked On Bears is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. It's a great way to get your betting jump-started here. If you say you want to put $5 on this Bears-Patriots game, the Bears are 6.5-point favorites at home. The money line is Bears minus 270 straight up, and the over-under is expecting a low-scoring game set at 38.5 points. A $5 bet on any of those or any of your other favorite sports, and if that bet hits, not only do you get the winnings for your bet, but also a bonus $150 in bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets as well, all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get your $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. So you've got big question marks around Jaquan Brisker. You've got concerns about how this offensive line lineup is going to look. You got a couple of little nagging injuries, linebacker, defensive line, a couple other spots here and there, but cornerback seems to be kind of quietly mounting here. And the Bears keep kind of swapping out guys on their active roster here and bringing up some different depth and moving guys to injured reserve and guys missing practice. And all of a sudden you're kind of looking around going, wait, this cornerback room is starting to fall apart a little bit here. This was a deep, strong group to start the year, and they're dropping like flies a little bit here. The good news is that someone like Kyler Gordon seems to be making progress in his return from injury, that he was a limited participant on Wednesday and Thursday, hasn't had a full DNP this week, but also not a full participant either. So I think it's going to be up in the air whether he's good to go or not from his hamstring injury there. But then, one of your other backups on the outside, Terrell Smith, he's been limited both days with an ankle injury, Wednesday and Thursday. We'll see what Friday brings for him as well. And then on Thursday, the Bears placed one of their other backup cornerbacks, Jalen Jones, on injured reserve. So he's done for the year. So now all of a sudden, when you look at this Bears defense, you've got a couple of different guys missing in action here, and you're going to have some potential inexperience filling in. Yes, you've got Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson on the outside, although Stevenson was benched to start the game last week, and the Bears haven't said for sure whether he'll miss snaps or not. But if he's going to miss snaps, well, if it depends on who's injured. But if Terrell Smith is injured and Kyler Gordon's injured, if you bench Tyreek Stevenson, the next guy up on the outside might be a man by the name of Amir Speed, who the Bears just signed to their 53-man roster this week. He was added from the practice squad. So he's been around a little bit, but just added to the 53-man roster. And Josh Blackwell is kind of your top backup slot cornerback in the place of Kyler Gordon if he can't go. But last week against the Arizona Cardinals, instead of starting Josh Blackwell, the Bears called up Reddy Stewart, the undrafted rookie free agent, from the practice squad and started him in the slot instead of Josh Gordon, in something that felt a little bit surprising and a little bit unexplained as to why all of a sudden they just decided this week that Reddy Stewart was going to be their best option at cornerback. But after Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson, you've got an injured Kyler Gordon, an injured Terrell Smith. They just put Jalen Jones on the injured reserve. So you've got Josh Blackwell and Amir Speed are your next two healthy cornerbacks after Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson. That feels like a problem. Maybe not as big of a problem against the New England Patriots wide receivers in particular, but a concerning trend is probably what I'm more meant to say. Nonetheless there, where it's okay, if you wanted to bench Stevenson, you don't got much to put out there unless you'll have an injured Terrell Smith to go out there. But you want to back up, not only a backup, but an injured backup in place of one of your starters. That doesn't feel very good. And then Kyler Gordon, if he's not able to go in the slot, I like Josh Blackwell, but they benched him last week for no apparent reason that we've been able to determine. So does that mean an undrafted rookie free agent and Reddy Stewart's going to step in off the practice squad again and start there again? And it's an undrafted rookie trying to play defense here. It concerns me that the depth there continues to get weaker and weaker. Now they've added another guy to the practice squad. They brought up a safety to the active roster. Tarvarius Moore is back. So they've got some different depth options here on the Bears roster, but it's just a bit of a concern how thin that group gets. It just feels like you're one injury away. Even if it's just a short time, if Stevenson or Jalen Johnson or whatever tweaks an ankle and misses a series, then Amir Speed's going from street free agent to starter in your secondary. And you can get away with that against Kendrick Bourne and Keyshawn Boutte and Demario Douglas. But You're not going to get away with that against the Packers, Vikings, and Lions in the 3 games that are going to follow. So, this is the last week where you can get away with a secondary that's a bit banged up. And you need these guys, especially the likes of Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker and Terrell Smith, to get healthy quickly here. I mean, the same is true for the offensive line, right? Where maybe you can get away with it against the Patriots, but when it's the Vikings and Lions pass rush coming after this offensive line, that's going to be a really tricky situation here. I guess the only other, good news coming from the injury report this week then is that Montez Sweat was a full participant on Thursday, which means he should be back and ready to go as well. Like that should be helpful there because Darrell Taylor has been limited with a knee injury, so you could be a little bit thinner at the pass rusher spot there, but having Sweat back can make a huge world of difference where Dominique Robinson doesn't have to step into the starting lineup out of nowhere and go from healthy scratch to starter on your defensive line for, again, unexplained reasons that don't quite make much sense to me. But hey, you know what? They're making the decisions here, not me. But okay, if you add back Sweat, you get a little bit more of a pass rush going. Maybe that can overcome some of the injuries and deficiencies on the secondary just long enough for those guys to get back healthier. And you just got to hope that you can get through this game against the New England Patriots without adding too much to that injury report because you're already thin at defensive tackle, you're thin at safety, you're thin at cornerback, you're thin on the offensive line. It feels like it's getting concentrated in a few particular spots, and at the very least, you need to spread this out or something because it's becoming a bit of a problem there. Certainly, if there are any major injuries in this game against the Patriots, we'll break it down for you here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as part of that Locked On Podcast Network, we are doing live post-game shows after every Bears game on a new YouTube channel for us. It's Locked On Chicago Sports. Over there, Joe George handles the postcast. We had him on the podcast last week. He does a great job. He gets it. You know what I mean? He's not going to go off the rails as some kind of, meatball fan who just spews nonsense just to spew nonsense. Like he understands how this works, and he's a good dude. So if you need some instant reaction after the Bears-Patriots game, win or, God forbid, lose, Locked On Bears postcast in the Locked On Chicago Sports YouTube channel. And I believe the audio will get posted into the podcast feed as well, but it's more fun to get in live, get in the comments, communicate with Joe, make it a conversation there and join in the fun. Well, hopefully fun after a win or join in the misery if, stuff really hits the fan after a loss to the New England Patriots, but we shouldn't have to worry about that too much. Then we'll still have a full Locked On Bears podcast coming for you on Monday to break down the game. We're still here for you 5 days a week. The postcast is just a little extra added something to you, but I appreciate you making us your first listen each and every single day, because I promise when you make Locked On Bears your first listen, that means first thing every day, you get another opportunity to bear down.